Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey.
Hey everybody, what is going on? It is your boy Crypto Bobby. Give me 1 second here as I pull up my actual camera so you can see my dumb face. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Crypto Bobby. Hope you are having a great day, great night, wherever you are watching or listening in from. What's going on to Chad, to John, to J-Bags, Davin, RC Phantom. What's going on, guys? Hope you're having a good one so far, and appreciate everybody taking the time to join here as always. And as far as things go today, wanted to hop on Crypto Happy Hour here, talk a little bit about what's happening in the industry, talk a little bit about just my general thoughts on things. There's a number of different topics I think we can dive into that I think are fairly interesting this week. And price action, things moved a little bit this weekend, and today's been fairly steady, fairly static, but definitely want to take all the questions as well. And as far as things go, knowing that it is Crypto Happy Hour tonight, I do have, it's No Can Defend. It's a Pilsner, and this is my fault. This is my bad per usual, but I did the dumb thing where I went to the hipster grocery store that I live nearby, and I just grabbed the first thing on the shelf that just said Pilsner because I was feeling a Pilsner. Unfortunately, on the back, I then found out that because it's a hipster grocery store, and because I have a beard and apparently now I have to do all things hipster, it is brewed with turmeric, ginger, and white tea. So I don't really know how this is going to taste. Probably like hipster sweat. So I don't know how much I'm actually going to like it here, but hey, whatever, we got to drink it because it's the only beer I got in the fridge. So we'll go into it and see what else is going on. What's going on, CKJ News? Appreciate the super chat. Thank you, my man. Thanks so much. And as a lot of people already indicated, yes, I am now live. So the market most likely will be tanking in the very near future here. I do have maybe a short or two open. Who knows? So we'll have to take a look at, we'll hopefully see a certain TRX dive into the dirt, but outside of that, now, yeah, it looks like we're dipping a little bit now that I've started to go live, but such is life when I'm live. But appreciate everybody taking the time here. And so one of the things I wanted to touch on a little bit outside of just the general market movements is I think some of the interesting aspects of both Bitcoin adoption, Ethereum adoption, and cryptocurrency adoption in general at this point in time. Because, when you look at the price, it for a lot of people, it sucks unless you've been short, both of a Bitcoin and Ethereum. And when I look at like the product market fit, a lot of people I think are talking about e-commerce or commerce, always have talked about payments, commerce, things like that. Actually, hey, we got Crypto Ethan is no longer on the show, so I should probably get rid of that banner, right? That makes sense. So one of the big things I think when I'm looking at both Bitcoin and Ethereum is what are the use cases that are actually making sense right now? What is helping to advance the industry forward, or where is this happening outside of speculation? Because I think for the vast majority of people, at least in the developing world, we can look at this and admit that the majority of the usefulness of some of these assets has been for speculative purposes and making money due to speculation. But if you look at something like Bitcoin in developing countries and places with very unstable currency, this is actually a chart of the local Bitcoin's volume in Venezuela right now. And this is by Bitcoin, not by the Venezuelan Bolivar. But this is the level of increase. There's been some speculation that part of this is washing money. I can't confirm or deny that. I don't have any type of insight into that. But you can see some very legitimate usage there. And if we go over to coindance.com or coin.dance, you can see pretty similar utilization across a lot of developing economies or economies that are, seeing a large bit of instability. You have Argentina. That chart looks pretty outrageous for local Bitcoins. Australia really matches the speculation and bubble we've seen. Australia is not a place where you see the Bitcoin really people fleeing their native currency for Bitcoin, the Australian dollar. You can see something similar in Canada, but in Chile, you can see something similar in Colombia. Kind of across South America, you can really see a lot of the developing economies that are seeing that level of instability go forward into, or start kind of increasing the utilization of Bitcoin. I think that's really important, and that is, in my opinion, one of, if not the killer use case right now for Bitcoin is providing a place while Bitcoin is a store of value for somebody in the United States and Australia and Denmark, wherever, as we kind of looking through these things, you could see if you match up the stability of the native currency with with the actual usage on local Bitcoins, you can see a certain level of correlation there that I think is really interesting. And something that a lot of people want to touch on. And as I'm looking at the chat here, seeing a lot of, talk about the Patriots are the best ever. Tom Brady is the best ever. Yes, Tom Brady is the best quarterback ever. The NFL season is over, guys. Get past it. Get past it. We don't want to talk about Tom Brady anymore. We don't want to talk about the Patriots anymore. It's over. Get used to it. It's over. It's done. We're done. We're moving on. We're on to Cincinnati. All right, guys, let's go. And to that point, with something similar on the aspect of, this is Bitcoin in particular. And when I look at Bitcoin, I do think that store value as a use case is really important. And store value, like I was saying before, in the United States, it's not good for the most part. I mean, yes, if you compare it, since the inception of Bitcoin, it's been incredible store value. You've made a ton of money. But in the past year and a half, it hasn't stored value or in the past, say 13 months, hasn't stored its value very well in comparison to the US dollar. But if you're looking at places with outrageous levels of inflation, where you have kind of uncensorable money, it is a really interesting type of opportunity for those individuals. And I do think that is, while the use case doesn't necessarily meet the needs of probably a lot of people watching this right now, there are places where you're starting to see that product market fit really hit home. And on the other side of the spectrum, I've talked about MakerDAO, or I've talked about MakerDAO, the CDP process, creating DAI. I think with Ethereum, a lot of people point to dApps, and specifically on dApp Radar. You go on dApp Radar, and if we pop over there right now, go to dApp Radar. Let's see here. People will go onto dApp Radar and they'll look at, let's say, the ETH dApps, and they'll say, the highest. Pull this up right now. The highest number of users on any ETH dApp is 1,300 users on Crypto Heroes, and about 1,000 on IDEX, and about 600 on Fork Delta, saying, Ethereum is worth X number of $1 billion, and the most users they have is 1,000 users. That's shit. That's crap. And that might be true. When Ethereum was initially billed as the kind of decentralized world computer that was going to have all these incredible apps built on top of it, that necessarily hasn't come to fruition. But I think the use case over time is kind of transferred, and you're starting to see this like meme in some cases of open finance. And when you do look at the number of ETH that is now locked up into MakerDAO CDPs, it's over 2,000 ETH right now. And you could see the chart, that number growing substantially. and the level of Ethereum really locked up in not only just MakerDAO with these CDPs, but in Compound Finance and a number of other financial related infrastructure, quote unquote dApps. I think that is the bigger kind of picture, not really number of users at this point in time, but the amount of ETH that's being that's entering into this like decentralized finance, open finance, whatever anybody wants to call it, whatever the flavor of the week is. And I think that has been really kind of like Bitcoin's really strong product market fit in these developing countries with really unstable local currencies. You're seeing this happen with Ethereum, and I think it's really going to show the product market fit of that as well. And taking a look at some of these questions here, so trying to dive into as many of them as possible. And let's see, yep, we still got Bitcoin dumping. So I don't have Coinigy on right now, which is, oh, bitch. Annoying, but I don't have Coinigy because I didn't have my spare phone with the 2FA on it, so I couldn't actually log into Coinigy, which is annoying. So I went to TradingView, and now we have this big, ugly, disgusting thing in the middle of the screen. Let me just see if I can refresh that and get it off. And shout out to everybody that's on both. So we got a bunch of people on YouTube, on Twitch, and on Periscope. So shout out to everybody that's on the individual platforms there. Always appreciate you taking the time. I was just looking at, so outside of the market dumping, one of the crazier things that I've seen recently is that I'm 8,000 views away on YouTube from 7 million views, which is pretty nuts. I don't know who the hell is watching me for 7 million or who the hell is watching me for that long, but that's where we're at right now, is closing in on 7 million views on YouTube, which is pretty incredible. So thanks to everybody who's been watching on YouTube for quite some time. Damn it, Bobby, stop streaming. Well, my apologies, folks, but hey, that's what happens when I go live, is it's gonna dump and you are gonna lose money unless you're short. So flip over to MEX, flip over to Bitfinex, whatever you use, get short. Samir, what's up? By the way, this beer, not very good. I didn't give a full review or anything like that, but not a big fan of having turmeric, ginger, white tea, and a Pilsner. It doesn't taste that great. I don't really enjoy it that much. I would have rather this been a Bud Light, but hey, what you get when the hipster grocery store doesn't sell Bud Light, and they only sell cans of No Can Defend Pilsner for $5. So looking at some of these questions here, a couple thoughts. What do you think about Twitter's Jack Dorsey and how he likes Bitcoin only? So, in case you guys were out of the loop last week, Jack Dorsey participated in the, I believe it was I forget the exact name of it, but it was essentially a game of pass the torch with Bitcoin, with Lightning, and people were kind of passing Lightning payments onto the next one. I think it was like Lightning Trust. There was the hashtag around it. So that was it was pretty cool. Jack participated through that. And then he got some questions as far as like, hey, what do you think about Bitcoin? What do you think about some of the other cryptocurrencies? Ethereum was brought up, other cryptocurrencies, and he's like, Bitcoin is the native internet, is the native currency of the internet, and I don't necessarily like anything else. And he said he's essentially a Bitcoin maximalist, or really is just solely focused on Bitcoin. Outside of Twitter, I think the interesting thing about Jack Dorsey, there's a couple different things. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to a podcast he was on recently. There was one podcast he was on with Elizabeth Stark, who is the CEO of Lightning Labs, which is one of the main companies developing on Lightning. So we're kind of building up the Lightning network as a whole. And Jack Dorsey is number one and an investor, I believe, in Lightning Labs. So makes sense to some respect there. But with that as well, talked a little bit about Square. And if you're not familiar, if you're not in the United States, you might not be familiar with Square. Jack Dorsey, oddly enough, is actually might more famously be known as the CEO of Twitter. But the bigger deal is that he is the CEO of Square as well. So he is a CEO of 2 publicly traded companies. And Square is pretty damn big, actually. $30 billion market cap. It had a hell of a run for a while and then pulled back pretty heavily. It was up to almost $100, pulled all the way back to $50. But Square is a payments company in the United States. They're primarily based in the United States. They have one of the most popular finance apps as well. It's the Cash App in the Apple iTunes Store, Android, all that stuff. The Cash App is very widely used. They integrated Bitcoin into the Cash App as well. And even if you listen to a lot of podcasts out there, they advertise about accepting or participating using Bitcoin within the Square Cash App. But also, if you're looking at commerce, about commerce as well, one of the big things that a lot of people know, or perhaps like when Square got started, they had the little thing that you plugged into your people could plug into their iPhones or their iPads or wherever and accept credit cards. And they've obviously developed a point of sale system, a POS system, a point of sale system that is very widely adopted, coffee stores, retail stores, wherever. So there is a very real likelihood that Bitcoin, and specifically Lightning, Lightning Network on Bitcoin, could be adopted into Square's both Cash App and retail as well, which would be pretty damn big for that. Remains to be seen, however, even if the integration does happen between Square and Bitcoin Lightning, if there really is any interest from consumers in transacting in Bitcoin. But with the propensity for Square's team, which does have really strong user interface from a payment processor perspective and from a consumer perspective, and really good user experience, there is a decent possibility if anybody can kind of build something that could help Bitcoin adoption from a commerce perspective, that Square could be the one to do it. Do you think it's ironic? So, good question there. Do you think it's ironic that Jack Dorsey is bullish on Bitcoin and also owns Square? I don't think there's any irony in that, to be pretty frank. I mean, I think when you look at Jack Dorsey owning, or not necessarily owning Square, but being the CEO of Square, as well as being bullish on Bitcoin, I don't think it necessarily competes fully with what he. There's certainly some level of overlap, I guess, when you look at the Cash App, perhaps, but there's really, I think it's more of a kind of an infrastructure provider in this perspective that doesn't necessarily compete directly with Bitcoin and is more of a value add to Bitcoin, at least for the time being. I don't think that Bitcoin necessarily competes directly with Square. I think that if you're going to see, like, whether it's commerce adoption or some types of payment adoption, Square provides the opportunity for greater Bitcoin adoption for consumers and for a better user experience, because that's one of the things I think Bitcoin does lack. And it's being continually built out, but the necessity of a better user experience for the products, I think, is important, and Square has a really good team that can work on that. So, Samir, thank you for that question too, and shout out to, let's see here. I don't know if I have MetaMask. So, Samir, just real quick, touching on that, can you talk about AirSwap and the fiat conversion, why only a few states are allowed? So this is actually an integration that we worked on with a company called Wire. I wrote the blog on the AirSwap site that you can check out here. Let me pull it up. Here's my dumb little face up here. But yeah, so this is kind of cool, and I was really excited about this, just at a high level, because Wire is a company that allows you to do fiat. It essentially enables a fiat on-ramp onto a decentralized exchange. So when, you know, I think even if you want to right now, even if the average consumer wants to go and get their money, essentially go and get their money into the crypto ecosystem, for the most part, what you have to do is you might go to somewhere like Coinbase or Gemini or Kraken or wherever like the local exchanges in your country, and you're probably going to buy on a centralized exchange and then send it off the centralized exchange, because it's the easiest way. Maybe you might use something like local Bitcoins that we were talking about before, but for the most part, you're going to have to go on and you're going to have to get your money on a centralized exchange and then send it off to either your cold storage, a hot wallet, whatever it might be. This is pretty cool in my opinion, because what it allows traders to do, or people that are participating in the crypto ecosystem, is you can onboard, you can link your bank account directly to your Ethereum wallet, and then you don't have to buy crypto on a centralized exchange and send it off. Your crypto literally never touches a centralized exchange. You directly link your bank account, and you go through a KYC process depending upon the size of the transaction and things like that, but you can directly link it to that. And then you can get your money in and out of the crypto ecosystem without having to, at this point in time, without having to ever touch a centralized exchange, which is pretty cool. And we integrated that service through Wire into AirSwap, because I thought that would be pretty cool and helpful for a lot of people that might be interested. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you are looking into it for sure. And popping into some of these questions, Reynaldo, what's up, bro? What's up, brother? Sorry about dumping the market. Hopefully it hasn't hurt you too bad at all. Stephen McCoy, what's up, man? Thank you for that super chat as well. Do I like Lightcoin? Enjoy your YouTube videos. Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that, man. I am not the biggest fan personally of Lightcoin. I think that, I mean, at least for me, so like from an investment perspective, I guess I'll say this. From an investment standpoint, although Litecoin was a nice trade in the past, past week or so, Litecoin was a pretty damn good trade. But from like a long-term perspective, I think there's a lot of things that Litecoin does that's rather repetitive, and there's not a huge moat around it. And one of the things, so let's see here, multi-coin. So I think this is a, if you are interested in this, and granted Multicoin, I believe at one point in time was short on their was short on Litecoin. I think they made about 70% on a Litecoin short. I don't know if they still are short, but this is a good bearish case for Litecoin. If you are interested in reading it, I'll put the link into the comments there so you guys can check that out. But a couple different things that I think are interesting to think about when you look at Litecoin as a whole is there's a couple like really main value propositions for Litecoin. You have the fast transactions, which in a time where Bitcoin, like December of 2017, January 2018, you had massive Bitcoin fees and it took forever to do a Bitcoin transaction. Yeah, that really jacked up the value of Litecoin, and I think it was the most trusted and for a lot of people, and myself included, was one of the more trusted ways of actually moving money between exchanges if you needed it, or moving money to friends. There was also some kind of value proposition around Lightning being the test net for Bitcoin development, whether you had that as one of the first places to implement SegWit, also Lightning Network, things like that. This is a really good, I don't want to dive into the entire thing, but there is a lot as far as a good bearish take. So if you're bullish on Litecoin, read this and see if you agree with it or disagree with it. If you think it's all BS when you read it, good. Strengthen your convictions and move on with your day. Know that is the type of quote unquote FUD that other people are throwing around about it. But for me, I think there's enough there's enough information within this, and there's enough kind of meat on the bones. And I'm not saying I base my opinion solely on this, but I think as far as this blog post goes, it's one of the better summaries of a Litecoin bear case, just in the long term. Although I think short term, I don't want to really speak too much on the price of Litecoin at this point in time. So, Stefan, what's up, brother? Hope all is well, man. I think there was an interesting article as well. If you guys missed this just came out about an hour or so ago on the block on CoinDesk. But this was shout out to my XRP army. Shout out to my XRP army fans out there, loyal bunch. But Ripple had hired Corey Johnson. I don't remember if he was from CNBC. So he was a kind of the, I would say maybe a talking head like this guy right here, but much more so. But they essentially hired Corey from CNBC to be the quote-unquote chief market strategist. He was a C-level executive at Ripple, and at the time, the goal of his job was essentially to try to explain, listen, and set strategies to make it easy for Wall Street and the world of finance to understand what we're doing at XRP, at Ripple, and talked a little bit about his role at Ripple, and specifically how XRP enables financial markets, regulators, financial institutions, yada, yada, yada. He apparently is no longer, within the past year, is no longer at Ripple, and some of that is due to market conditions. They have eliminated his role as chief market strategist. Kind of sucks for him, to be honest. Like, I'm sure he took a little bit of a leap, going from CNBC to a role at a what's effectively a cryptocurrency startup, to get his position eliminated. I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure there's more behind it than just when somebody says your position is eliminated. Usually it's a little bit more meat on the bones than that, but thought that was fairly interesting. But Stefan, going to your point, I think where was it? So there was a little bit more here as well. I didn't get a chance to read this entire thing, but I think Mark Karpelès, who was the CEO of the former CEO of Mt. Gox, there is this whole kind of movement now. It's Mt. Gox Rising or some weird stuff like that. But Mt. Gox Rising, and this plan by Brock Pierce and a few other folks to essentially revive Mt. Gox, refund the creditors, and this whole kind of elaborate process. However, the former CEO, Mark Karpelès, who is the one that really just absolutely mangled everything about Mt. Gox and was, unfortunately for a lot of people, the worst businessman, the worst security person, just really not good at his job of running a cryptocurrency exchange. But according to him, he kind of came out and spoke to the block, and I think a couple other people as well, and talked about just the lack of viability behind this plan. So I'm not paying too much mind to this Mt. Gox Rising thing, but I guess if you're interested in something to keep an eye on, maybe something a little bit fun, it might be something worth keeping an eye on for you as well. Dave Conroy, what's up, man? Asked earlier but got disconnected. Shout out to seeing you on Twitch as well. If you guys are on Twitch, shoot me a subscribe on Twitch. Whatever the cool kids do on Twitch these days. Would love to see you there as well. But thoughts on ETH post proof of work? Will economics transfer to proof of stake? I'm interested in seeing what happens there, because there's a lot of doubt around Ethereum's transition to proof of stake. I think there is a lot of doubt from competitors. There is a lot of doubt from people that are in the kind of Bitcoin community. So I don't have a great, honestly, I don't have a great idea as far as how those economics will transfer. I don't know if the team is going to be fully able to nail the incentives there or not. Obviously, as somebody who works in that ecosystem, I sure as hell hope they do, and hope they're thinking everything through, and that it's not just a kind of grand, totally winged experiment. But we'll have to see how a lot of it shakes out at this point forward. Market buying BTT. I am personally not market buying BTT right now. Shout out to the homies in Tron Army right now as well. I am. I'll say I'm not long Tron. Although it's had a nice bounce. I thought it would dump a little bit harder than what it did. Do a 4 hour. I thought the dump would be a little bit harder following this. This was around the time of the completion, the snapshot of the Tron airdrop. It dumped about 6.5%. So I think, for me personally, I don't think Tron's going to be able to keep up the momentum it had. But never doubt the Tron market. Never doubt the Tron market makers. Never doubt Justin Sun. Whereas these are, if we're gonna have a good little laugh today. This is pretty funny. Where is it? What do we got here? Come on, give it to me, buddy. Where are you? Did he delete the one tweet? He tweets a lot. Shit. All right, so he tweeted something about Justin Sun tweeted something about him being tied with essentially him being tied with Vitalik for the number of followers, and then people are like, bro, you have fake followers. And then he went and tweeted that he tweeted a Twitter audit between him and Vitalik, and this just makes me want to stand up and say I'm proud to be short Tron. Part of the movement, part of the resistance, because this is the most ridiculous. Dude, Vitalik, oh man. I feel like just Vitalik owns so much real estate in Justin Sun's head. Like, he is living rent-free on 10,000 acres in Justin Sun's head right now, that he's literally, Justin Sun is sitting on Twitter right now posting audits of his Twitter followers against Vitalik, because people made fun of him and said he had more fake followers than Vitalik did. Like, that's too funny. You can't make that up. And it just makes me a proud short TRX fan. It just makes me proud. I'm happy to be here. So Dave Conroy, good question there. Good question from Twitch as well. Thoughts on how Coinbase should handle the spinning down of listed products that are no longer viable? And this is definitely something that I think is pretty interesting, because when you look at Coinbase right now, or just other exchanges, I think this is probably maybe less limited to Coinbase as a whole, and more on the side of some of the other exchanges. But I think proof of work coins are one of the issues that is probably a bigger deal than some of the ERC20 tokens, because you look at some of these proof of work coins that are, whether it was ETC getting, having the whole shebang with the 51% attack, the block reorg, you've had like Verge get 51% attacked a bunch. You've had, cryptocurrencies get 51% attacked so much they rebranded. The proof of work coins are, I think, really interesting. when you look at their listing on exchanges, because if there ever is an opportunity to short a lot of these ones, right now the financial incentives really don't align that well to shorting, or excuse me, not to shorting, but to, I think right now a lot of the financial incentives don't align that well to running a 51% attack or a block reorg on a lot of these cryptocurrencies. But if more short markets open up, I think that's going to actually put the financial incentives in place for larger players to both potentially go for, block reorgs, 51% attacks that could create market panic and dump the price, but also looking at code vulnerabilities and some other things like that as well. Everything in life, I think, and I'm kind of a firm believer of this, but everything in life really comes down to incentives. And right now the incentives for shorting cryptocurrency, or the incentives for attacking a lot of these cryptocurrencies aren't there from a monetary perspective, because there's no way to profit off of their downturn unless you're talking about the more liquid assets like Bitcoin, like Lightcoin, basically anything on BitMEX and a few things on Bitfinex as well. But as more and more of those opportunities start to come, whether that's through something like DYDX, Compound Finance, etc., those are kind of Ethereum related right now. But as more short opportunities become available, the incentives, I think, will be more aligned for more attacks on these cryptocurrencies, and that's when you're really going to have to pay attention, and something to keep an eye out for. Have I made any Lightcoin Lightning transactions? Yeah, I have. I got to fix my Casa node is down right now, but somebody said to sign up for, I think it was tippin.me as well, and so I just signed up for that before. So if anybody, let's see here, see if I pull this bad boy up. If anybody wants to go nuts and do a Lightning transaction, there is my QR code for tippin.me for Bitcoin Lightning. So if you have a mobile client on Lightning and you want to check it out, there you go. There's a QR code. So I signed up for that the other day. I had a few people saying, hey, check out tippin.me. So I'll start incorporating this a little bit more as well, see if we could do some interesting things, because I think the more, obviously the more we utilize certain components and capabilities of Bitcoin, of Ethereum, of some of these other potential assets or just use cases in general, I think that's going to be pretty cool and something worthy to continue to check out as a whole. Do I know of anyone willing to accept between 0.25 and 1 BTC for advice? I think I missed that meme. I've seen that fluctuating quite a bit. I don't know if I kind of missed that on Twitter. Took a little bit of time off this weekend, so I don't know if there was something that I went and missed out on. But yeah, if you want to throw me 0.25 to 1 BTC via this beautiful QR code, feel more than welcome to do so. That would just be absolutely wonderful. That works well. So Dave Conroy, what's up, man? Again, appreciate that question. This is, what do we got? WBTC Network. So just kind of keeping tabs on what's going on with WBTC. This is, I've talked about it in the past, it's the wrap Bitcoin on Ethereum. One of the reasons, so this hasn't really picked up too much steam yet. I would consider it very much to be in like a beta capacity. There's only 72 WBTC in existence right now, or 72 Bitcoin that are in custody. So it's still a pretty small market, and the actual number of the actual kind of transactions that are happening is still relatively limited. But where I think this gets interesting is the OTC market in general, because if you look at the OTC market, if this does pick up some steam, granted, you are trusting a centralized, you're trusting the custodian here, which is BitGo. But depending upon the size of the transaction, as well as the fees that an OTC desk or a brokerage might be charging you, this is a way, if there is enough Bitcoin, if there's essentially enough WBTC minted at some point in time, where you could do relatively trustless atomic swaps with WBTC for ETH or for DAI or for any other type of token through a number of platforms. There's a couple of different products that people have built that are essentially like OTC style interfaces that allow for really zero counterparty risk. So I think that is one of the areas that could be interesting, as well as when certain decentralized exchanges start to integrate it fully. But right now it hasn't really caught too much on. Also, compound finance is the other thing that I'd like to start to see once compound finance enables wrap Bitcoin. I think that could also be something that you see as one of the larger aspects that kicks off the usefulness potentially of WBTC. But I would still say it's somewhat of an experiment. Correct. So taking a look at some more of these questions here. What do you know about Zilliqa? I remember reading the white paper a while ago. I haven't kept too much into, I haven't researched it too much recently. I think they went through the process of launching. Well, if anybody could fill me in, I think they were supposed to launch mainnet and they had a delay. I don't know if the actual mainnet launch occurred yet or not. I think it was originally pushed back, but if anybody in the comments could fill me in on that, that'd be fantastic. If Zilliqa has launched yet or not, at least on mainnet. But the big concept behind Zilliqa as a whole was really kind of an Ethereum-esque blockchain with sharding built in from day one. As sharding is not currently implemented in Ethereum, that was supposed to be, with Zilliqa, it is a more scalable from a transactions per second blockchain, supposed to be than Ethereum and then some of the other alternatives, yet still remaining decentralized. But I do not. I haven't really kept too much in the loop on Zilliqa. So yeah, it looks like anti-spam box mainnet launch, but it's in a bootstrap mode. Okay, that's cool. So Lightning Network growth versus open finance growth, which is more impressive? If you guys are looking for MLN, right? Lightning, it's 1ML. So if you guys are looking for Lightning growth, this website, Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Lightning Network, if you are looking for just statistics, kind of like it's basically like the block explorer for the Lightning Network. This is a pretty cool website, 1ml.com. Goes to show the number of nodes, the number of channels, the network capacity, and the node countdown as well. So it's pretty cool to see. Right now, you have a network capacity of 2.3 million on Lightning, which sounds somewhat smaller, but you also have to remember that I would say Lightning is still very much in a beta phase, and the capacity for Lightning channels is limited. It's kind of throttled at this point in time. So something to look into. I would think that, or in my opinion, what you really want to look at is the number of channels and the number of nodes. And then on the other side of the house, when the other portion of the question was in regards to was in regards to quote unquote open finance, which is Ethereum based, and that takes into account things like MakerDAO CDPs, the amount of ETH locked up in that, the amount of ETH kind of involved in the compound finance ecosystem, in DYDX, maybe locked up in Uniswap, whatever it might be. I do think both are impressive. And I think that right now, at least, like for me, from what I see on Twitter and things like that, like there's a lot of divisiveness in the crypto communities. I think part of it is, in my opinion, part of it's just because a lot of people are a lot poorer than they were a year ago, and didn't play things financially too well, and either lost a lot of money or whatever it might be. So I think they take out aggression on other people. And so there's been a lot of just kind of like back and forth, and a lot of shitcoinery and a lot of things like that, kind of labeling people, yada yada yada. That's cool. It is what it is. The one thing I think is interesting is there's kind of been a tightened debate between the quote unquote Bitcoiners, and there's now a pretty core group of Ethereum. I don't want to say Ethereum maximalists, but kind of Ethereum maximalists. And there's been a little bit of a clash there, but I do think, and I've said it before, I think both can coexist. I think they both serve different use cases, and I do think the growth, quite frankly, of Bitcoin Lightning Network and the Ethereum Open Finance or decentralized finance, DeFi, whatever, I think both are impressive, in my opinion. Michael Boudreau, what was the site selling Lightning Node hardware? Yep, Jizzy Mac. Got it right? Jizzy Mac. Yeah, Casa Node is correct. CHK, don't you think the Bitcoin amount of Bitcoin, or the BTC amount in the Lightning Network, is a joke, considering LN Big has like 90% of all Bitcoin in channels? I don't think it's a joke. I mean, I think you have a large number of channels, and I think the infrastructure is getting built out. I think we're in my opinion, we're still like really early days when it comes down to a lot of these. Or my mustache is itchy as hell always. It's the most annoying thing ever. But I think we're really early days, and people get frustrated with a lack of adoption or just a lack of what seems like progress. But when you look at the development of things that are either built on top of Bitcoin, built on top of Ethereum, whatever it might be, a lot of this is, when you're building something on top of Bitcoin or you're building something on top of Ethereum, these are both networks that transact with millions and millions of dollars a day. And it takes a lot longer to input changes on them than I think a lot of people anticipate. And I do think growing, when you're trying to build Lightning Network, it is going to take longer than some people want to see. And I think that's just something some folks are going to have to get used to. I don't think that Lightning Network or the network capacity is necessarily a joke. And I do think a lot of it does come down to simply the kind of the throttle that they have on network or on channel capacity and things like that. I don't know what this spam is in Periscope. Join. The line. King Dollar, money read B plan, see pitch deck. Way too many capitalizations to have a functioning pitch deck, bro. You probably couldn't even... you spelled pitch deck. I think there's a word or a space in between, but hey, whatever. The pump is due to income tax returns in America. That's a new narrative. That's isn't it Chinese New Year or something? Or shouldn't we be pumping or dumping because of some other stupid narrative? Drew Tatali, it's not spam. It's not spam. Yeah, it's spam, bro. It's spam. Get your shit spam out of my comments, man. Prove me wrong. Bro, you're the one begging in my Periscope mentions. I don't have to prove shit. Morel, interesting question. How much longer do you welcome this bear market for accumulation? I'd like to see another year, perhaps 1.5, maybe even 2 years. Accumulation is good. It's an interesting question for sure. That would, I mean, if we see another 1.5 years of a bear market, that is, I think you're going to see a pretty big, I think you're going to see a larger exodus of a lot of people with just a bunch of tight psychos like me and you watching this right now that are still, you know, interested and involved in this ecosystem. But I do think that the Bitcoin halving is going to be an event to watch. And I also think, just globally speaking, we don't know, you know, we can look at this and think, okay, you know, maybe there's a, you know, maybe this is going to last for another year and a half, 2 years, whatever it might be. What happens if there's some type of macro event, globally speaking, that affects the cryptocurrency market? What happens if there's some type of currency event that affects, you know, like a sovereign currency that affects the Bitcoin market or the cryptocurrency market? A lot of things that I think are unknowns right now that make it quite difficult to look a year and a half to 2 years out and say, okay, you know, this is going to last for the X amount longer as a whole. Crypto Dale, what is up, brother? If you can send me a Busch Light, man, I got stuck accidentally drinking a Pilsner with turmeric ginger white tea. If you can send me a Busch Light, I would gladly shotgun and drink that. Multiple of them just now. So please. So taking a look at some more of these questions here, appreciate all of them. As I'm looking at them, if you guys are watching this on YouTube right now, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you are on you're on Twitch, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Would love to see you additionally on Twitch. We'll probably think of some new halfway interesting things we can do on Twitch here as well. I will shotgun beers anytime you want, Stefan. Whether it's Natty Ice, Busch Light, Bud Heavies, give me a beer. I'll shotgun it, except for this just god-awful hipster thing that should not happen to the world. Need to go on the TLC show, My Strange Addiction, for my bear market beard. I like having a beard. It's great, man. It feels good. Feels great. It's always good. It's always good. So this is actually a good question. Mick Hick, what's up? This got a lot of positive press when it went live. But this was something. So CoinMe, and shout out, I think one of the guys that works at CoinMe reached out to me personally, so shout out to him for actually watching the channel. So that's pretty cool. So I got to talk to them about this a little bit more. But yeah, so you can buy Bitcoin now from CoinMe at Coinstar kiosk. So if you are, I don't know if they have this abroad as well, but at least in the US, if you go to grocery stores, like this is something I used to do as a kid or whatever. Like there were Coinstar machines and like Stop and Shops and all the local grocery store, you know, some of the local grocery stores, and you'd save up a bunch of freaking pennies and quarters and shit, and you'd throw them into a Coinstar machine, and they would give you like a receipt, and the cashier would give you whatever, 20, 50 bucks, however much you would have, and I'd be rich. However, with this, so you can do something similar here, but it's a little bit more, it's not as straightforward. So you actually just go to a Coinstar kiosk and you buy Bitcoin, and then you can buy up to $2,500. You have to, I believe, enter your phone number, and there might be some level of KYC, and then you actually have to go and redeem your Bitcoin online at coinme.com or at coinme.com. When I saw this initially, I thought this would have been really cool, because it would have been pretty awesome if you went into a supermarket and you had a bunch of spare change or whatever. Let's say you had $50 in quarters, and you're just like, you know what, I'm never going to use these quarters. I want to get rid of them. You dump them into the Coinstar machine, and it prints you a receipt with a QR code and like a private key or something like that for Bitcoin, or at the worst case scenario, like a link. That would be pretty cool. And then you just would put your coins in, get your Bitcoin, basically a Bitcoin ATM with coins. That would be pretty sweet. But this is a little bit more. This is kind of like basically just Bitcoin ATM functionality on a Coinstar kiosk. So obviously Coinstar provides great distribution, but I don't know how much of a difference this will kind of really make in the long run. So interesting question here. Crypto Fet, shout out for a good question, man. What would you choose? 1 Bitcoin, 85 LTC, or let me see, what's LTC? Is at $42 right now, or $3,650 of XRP. So 82 or 85 XRP is about $3,600. I would personally take the Bitcoin. I would love to hear your guys' comments in that as well. But if you could choose between 1 Bitcoin, 85 Litecoin, or $3,500 of XRP, what would you choose personally? A lot of you guys know I'm not a big XRP guy. It's just not my cup of tea at all. So I would not choose XRP. Also not super bullish on Litecoin's valuation medium to long term. So I would go with 1 Bitcoin, and that's my personal opinion, but would love to hear from you guys as well. Shout out to the people in the YouTube comments spamming things on Drug Wars. I don't know what that game is on Steam, but looks like we got a new proof of Weak Hands 3D. So shout out to you guys. Love the spam comments. Always great. Always great to get some really good spammy engagement. Shout out to you guys. XRP, the easy choice. It's the standard, right? Obviously, it's the standard. I mean, everybody knows. Why would you not choose the standard? It's facts. Choose the standard. Go with the standard. Freeman Young, what's up, brother? Why do you think Coinbase hasn't added Cardano and XLM? Security reasons. I don't know in particular. I don't have any type of inside information into this. I don't have any real understanding as to why Coinbase may or may not have added Cardano or Stellar, and they chose to add Basic Attention Token and 0x and Maker and DAI and some other tokens as well, but Ethereum Classic. I would venture to guess that at some point in time, Coinbase will probably add those tokens. I think long term right now, Coinbase, it's interesting because one of the big things that Coinbase, headcount wise, hiring wise, Coinbase was hiring a lot of people for like a Wall Street institutional play, and they've since pared that back, and I think they've readjusted some headcount according to reporting. But when you look at how they're trying to compete against something like Binance, which is, I would say, has a really large number of tokens and does compete for a retail type of audience, I think Coinbase is trying to move in that direction of not only just being that fiat on ramp, but also competing directly against the Binances of the world. You guys, at this point in time, I am going to probably, I guess, finish this awful beer and relax for the rest of the evening. But I hope you guys enjoyed tonight's stream. Hit that thumbs up button on YouTube if you did. And shout out to everybody on Twitch and Periscope as well. Really thank you so much for your time joining this evening. Pleasure speaking with you folks as always. Let me know if you have any comments and the questions afterwards. Happy to address those as well. But appreciate the time. And tomorrow, for those watching, I will have we'll likely have a video up with the guys from TCR Party. So we'll have that going on at this point, or should have that going on tomorrow. Should be pretty cool if you guys are interested in token curated registries, some of the other cool stuff that's happening in the crypto ecosystem. I will be recording a video with them tomorrow. But appreciate the time, everybody. Hope you have a good one. Peace.